The Chiefs just got a very unfortunate injury update, but in this video, I'm going to explain why it's not really going to affect the bigger picture. But if you guys are new to this channel, my name is Michael Darcy, and you're watching the KC Sports Report. Do me a big time favor and hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more daily Chiefs coverage. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pull up this tweet from Matt Derrick. Andy Reid says defensive end Felix Uzama is expected to land on an injured reserve today with a hamstring injury. If so, that would end his season. And this is just horrible news for a guy that was going into the third season of his career. And up until this point, he has been a major disappointment. He was drafted in the first round back in 2023. The draft was in Kansas City. He was a K-State product. The Chiefs took him 31 overall. And so far, he has not lived up to any of the expectations. And even when the Chiefs decided to draft him, he was widely regarded as a developmental defensive end. So I wasn't a huge fan of the pick when they initially made it. But over time, outside of that one play in the Super Bowl where he was able to, stop the run against the 49ers, he's been a non-factor. He has done basically nothing. And I think that we're at a point where we can officially name him the biggest bust in, Brett Veach's drafting tenure. I think he has been that bad. And a guy that we talk about a lot as, someone who's disappointed, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Sky Moore. But even those guys, if you just look at their drafting position and what they've both done, they've done more than Felix. And Sky Moore hasn't been a good wide receiver, but he was a second-round draft pick. When you're drafted in the first round, things change. Your expectations are much higher, and sadly, Felix has just never worked out at the NFL level. And I want to go ahead and share my screen and just look at his career stats up until this point. He's got 41 combined tackles, and he's got 3 sacks. And that's over 2 seasons, 2 full seasons. And guess what? If we just look at that, he's played in games. He's played in, actually, I'm trying to look at my screen because it's so far away, but he has played in a substantial amount of games, and having 3 sacks and 41 combined tackles to your name, it's not good enough. That's not going to cut it for a guy that was drafted in the first round. And again, I don't have any problem with saying that he was a bust. And he was just a guy that probably got drafted because the draft was in Kansas City and the organization wanted to go with a local kid, a local product. I understand why the Chiefs did it, but up until this point, he has been a huge disappointment. And I think that's okay to admit. But I honestly think that he might have played his last snap because he was going into year 3, and up until this point, he didn't really look good in training camp, didn't really look good in the preseason games. And, he was fighting, with Ashton Gelati and Charles Omenihu and Mike Dana for snaps. And I feel like an equivalent to really sum up this injury, this would be like if the Chiefs lost Malik Herring. Who out there would be just distraught if the Chiefs lost Malik Herring for the season? Now, he's a fine player, and he's actually produced well on this defensive line when given the opportunity, but he's not someone that is anchoring down your defensive line, and you need to get to the quarterback. Felix has struggled to get to the quarterback. This is not like if George Karlaftis would miss the rest of the season. It's just not like that. George Karlaftis is someone that has steadily improved over his NFL career, and that loss would hurt. But Felix has just been such a non-factor over his first 2 seasons. Even projections, if he was fully healthy, there's no guarantee that he would even see the field, and if he did, he probably wasn't going to have some monster season. So I do want to hear from you guys down in the comments section below. What do you think of Felix Uzama? Have you completely given up on him? Do you think maybe there's some chance that he can revive his career next year? Listen, next year he would be going into his 4th year where in the first 2 seasons of his career, he didn't do anything. And then in the 3rd season, he completely missed it with a hamstring injury. And I don't know how anybody could expect that guy going into year 4 is just going to magically turn his career around, especially at defensive end. I understand if it takes a guy a year to really grasp the physicality and the technique of playing that position, because it's a whole nother animal when you're trying to sack the quarterback in the NFL versus college. It's easy to sack the quarterback at K-State. It's not so easy when you're going up against guys that do this for a living. And I do think that, if we just look at it, when you're drafted in the first round, you have a fifth-year option. The team can elect to pick that fifth-year option up, and it's a way for, franchises to get another year of team control for a good player. Felix Uzama is not going to be here in year 5. There is no way in hell the Chiefs would pick up that fifth-year option, and, maybe if he was a little bit better, they'd consider it. They're not going to do that because they picked up Clyde's fifth-year option, but Clyde was actually a producer in this offense in his rookie season. And just, if you watch the tape and you look at what we've seen on the field, the NFL is a production-based business, a results-based business, and Felix has given you no results. And I want to talk more about this because I feel like Felix, in a certain way, has kind of gotten the short end of the stick, and I want to talk about that, and we'll do that right after this ad break. This video is sponsored by my wonderful friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is critical. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, so no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. Huge thanks to the sponsors that have supported this channel all offseason long. But to answer the question, why has Felix struggled? Why was he drafted in that position? I think the Chiefs wanted to go with a kid that was the local product. And I feel like from the very beginning, he was almost set up for failure in a sense because he had all these expectations in a year where the draft was in Kansas City. The hype was around him. And, he's always going to be remembered as the draft pick the year the draft was in the city that you got, drafted to. And especially in Kansas City, that's a big deal. And so there were always going to be lofty expectations, but this was a guy that was a developmental pass rusher in college, and the Chiefs took him thinking that they could maybe develop him, and guess what? They haven't. They just probably found out very quickly he is not going to project very well at the next level. And I think that anybody else that is hanging on to any hope in Felix is probably a K-State fan. And listen, I don't know if you can see behind me, there's that, Kansas Jayhawk pennant. I'm a Jayhawk through and through. I will put my bias aside and tell you I wanted Felix to succeed, but he didn't, and he hasn't, and he probably won't. And so I think the Chiefs need to truly evaluate what they're doing at that position, because next year, Felix is going into year 4, and while he's under contract, I don't think there should be any guarantee that he makes this roster. What has he done in the not short sample size, in the long sample size? What has he done that would earn a roster spot over someone that, is grinding a UDFA to make this team? And I think the Chiefs will probably end up drafting a defensive end fairly high in next year's draft, because guess what? Felix, even if he has some monster season in year 4 where he puts up 5 or 6 sacks, the Chiefs are not going to pay him. The Chiefs are not going to pick up that fifth-year option. He's gone. And so you're going to need someone that can replace Felix when he's gone, which shouldn't be too hard, but I do think the Chiefs need to draft a defensive end fairly high in next year's draft. But I do want to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. What do you think of the news that we just got today that Felix Uzama is likely going to be placed on injured reserve with a hamstring injury, therefore ending his third season really before it got started, which, listen, you're never going to wish injury on anybody, and I'm not happy that this injury happened. I just don't think it changes much in terms of, wins and losses. Now, maybe your depth is tested more now, and maybe the Chiefs will be looking at picking up a defensive end during roster cutdowns, but I don't think that Felix was ever going to be someone that produced enough that made an impact on a championship team. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. That's all I've got for this video. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Daily Chiefs content. We are trying to hit 14,000 subscribers before the Chiefs season. We're like 300-ish away, a little over 300. We can definitely hit that goal. So I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And as always, go Chiefs.